Hey everyone, my name is Catalyst, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be taking an in-depth look at the Battlefield 2042 official gameplay trailer. If you are new to my channel, welcome, I hope you enjoyed this video. As most of you already know, I try to look at every trailer as objectively as possible and point out as many important details as I can without letting my feelings get in the way. So I hope to provide some commentary for what these features are and how they may work in-game. I'll be making a questions and concerns video that should come out either tomorrow or sometime later in the week, but with that being said, let's sink our teeth into this trailer. Now, unfortunately, as far as trailers go, despite this trailer being action-packed and exciting to watch, it was a bit of a disappointment when it came to cluing us in on how a majority of the game's leaked mechanics work and how the game will play. Because the trailer was so heavily scripted, there is still going to be a fair amount of speculation on not only my video today, but in the community at large moving forward. And I imagine that our next big dose of information as to how this all works will be at EA Play next month. To start, let's focus on how this new conquest appears to work. As we can see multiple times throughout the trailer, there are traditional landmark objectives that serve as sectors. On the map Hourglass, which is set in Qatar, we see an objective set at the stadium, another in some kind of fuel depot, an objective set at the city center, one along the highway, and a final objective around the waterfront. In these objectives, there are multiple smaller conquest-like objectives that all need to be captured by your team in order to secure the sector. Here we see an objective C1, and later in the trailer we see objective A2, which appears to be taking place at the stadium. I assume that each sector will have a different amount of objective to capture within it based on the size of the sector itself. The sectors in the game mode take on the form of flags from previous Battlefield titles, control a majority of these sectors to bleed out the enemy tickets. The game will also tell you exactly how many players are on the flag when it's contested, both friendly and enemy. This is an upgrade from the system seen in the past two titles where you just saw a presence on your HUD that let you know there was somebody on the flag with you. I think this is a great update to the HUD system, especially considering that there is going to be more going on than ever before in this Battlefield, and information is going to be super useful. Breakthrough also makes a return, but we have yet to see any gameplay of that specifically. Next, we got a very solid look at the new Plus system, a brand new feature to the franchise. This mechanic is probably the one that we saw the most clearly in this trailer as to how it will actually work. It's actually very reminiscent of the old Crysis games, and as we can see here, the player has up to 3 slots available to fill with attachments in 4 different directions that they can switch on the fly. We see multiple weapon sights, weapon grips, extended mags, a compensator or a flash hider, and a suppressor, and maybe a cheeky nod to Jack Frags on the weapon side as well. In my last video, I speculated that this new Plus system teased the return of a robust and deep progression system full of different attachments and sights to grind and unlock, and this more than reaffirms my suspicions. I'm very curious as to how this mechanic is going to feel in-game and what kind of checks and balances DICE is going to employ here. Do we have to be firmly out of combat in order to use this feature, or can we use it while taking fire, or does it treat it somewhat like how the spawn system is currently in Battlefield 5, where you can use it whenever you like, or you can try to, but as soon as you take fire, the game kind of yanks you out of that menu. We'll have to see. One of the things that was made very evident in this trailer is the emphasis on vehicle gameplay, which we already knew was going to be a big part based on the reveal trailer, but I think this trailer really hammered home how much air vehicles and really vehicles in general are going to play a part in not only traversing the map, but in overall combat across the map as well. We saw Ospreys, although they didn't really call it an Osprey, they called it something else. It looked like an evolution of the Osprey. Little Birds, Jets, Apaches, Ka-52 Alligators, an evolution of the M1 Abrams and T-14 tanks, and that's just on this map alone. And while no, I don't think that the vehicles are going to be as concentrated and together as they were for the purposes of the trailer, I do worry about how DICE is going to balance out these massive amounts of vehicles, as it's not really been a specialty of theirs lately, often overloading too many vehicles onto the map. Aerodrome breakthrough, anybody? All jokes aside, I think one of the biggest questions moving forward is how well the map design is going to play and how good the balance is going to be between having more vehicles on the map but also having more players to counter them. As we saw throughout the trailer, nearly every specialist is capable of equipping a rocket launcher or some kind of explosive. We'll get a feel for how well it plays during the beta in a few months' time. Speaking of specialists, we also got a good look at how some of the specialists look and play. The two focused on primarily were McKay and Sundance, and with that we got a little bit of an idea as to how loadouts will work in the game as well. If you focus on the bottom right hand corner of the HUD, it appears that we have the primary and secondary weapon, a specialist specific gadget, and then two other loadout specific gadgets. You can see this again with the introduction of a new specialist Delta, which appears to be a specialist that has a riot shield as seen here later in the trailer. It appears that the two loadout gadgets, like primary and secondary weapons in Battlefield 2042, will be unlocked and usable for every single specialist. A couple of small things to note as well: McKay's grappling hook appears to have infinite ammo and a pretty decently sized range, but is on a cooldown, and this cooldown can be represented on the crosshair that we see a few seconds later. It appears that some specialist abilities have cooldowns while others work off expendable uses like Sundance's wingsuit and Falk's stim shotgun. Also here we get a nice view of one of the new melee animations with hopefully the return of customizable dog tags, fingers crossed, and we also see a small slide here which, upon first viewing, I thought that this was an ice skate, which is kind of a legacy movement mechanic, but after watching it a few times, it is a slide which points towards the game's movement being similar if not identical to Battlefield 5's. While we're here talking about the in-game HUD, the HUD tells us a few different things throughout the trailer. First and foremost, we are continuing the 4-man squad system from Battlefield 5. The minimap is also very reminiscent of the Battlefield 4 minimap, although the flags are at the bottom of the map this time, while the tickets are still at the top. Below the minimap are two objects. One looks like a phone, the other is something that I honestly can't decipher what it is. Does that cell phone mean that there is a call-in tank available to us, or does the game tell me to return my mother's phone calls? I'm not really sure. We didn't really see any practical demonstration of a call-in system, so it's still up in the air as to whether or not there is a squad call-in system like in Battlefield 5, or if there is a similar system that works differently. We know from previous information that you can call in vehicles and tanks, but we just don't quite know exactly how that works yet. Friendly players will not only show their health bars, but also give off a dot or a little insignia based on how far away you are from the friendly player. I originally thought that that insignia would change based on what specialist you're playing, or seeing rather, and maybe it will, but at this timestamp you can easily see that the Sundance and Delta specialists, they both have the same sign, so who really knows? Spotting appears to be returning to the days of Battlefield 4, in which firing your weapon without a suppressor marks you on the minimap with a small red blip. Additionally, you will be able to see enemy health bars and their name when you aim at them. I would also assume that their name will pop up whenever you get a certain distance away from them. I wonder if the game will also include any other types of spotting moving forward, either to differentiate between specialists or to better mark enemies. I'm not sure where you all stood on the ping system implemented on Battlefield 5, but I mostly found it to be pretty useless more often than not, so it will be interesting to see how they implement spotting moving forward. We also see in this trailer that the squad revive mechanic is apparently making a return in Battlefield 2042, as we see Mr. Floppy Ragdoll take a bit of a spill here, and the HUD shows that he is revivable by his squad mates and is given a timer. I'm personally very happy that squad revives are returning, as I felt it was one of Battlefield 5's greatest additions to the core gameplay loop. Later in the trailer, we see firsthand how the tornado works in the game. The tornado can not only disrupt your radar and your HUD, but it can also lift vehicles off the ground and suck them into the vortex of the tornado if they're already airborne. And to wrap up the video, talking about some vehicles again, you can see here that vehicles are returning to having infinite ammo and 2 core abilities. This is essentially a full-on return to how tanks and vehicles and air vehicles worked in Battlefield 4. And most importantly, this marks the death of the attrition system in Battlefield games. Thank you, Jesus. Overall, this trailer was fun to watch and look at in particular, but it was incredibly scripted, and even though we got some information, I think we got less information, more questions than answers, questions that will hopefully be answered in the coming months. My biggest question is how DICE is going to balance 128 players with the clear increase of vehicle gameplay, but that's for another video at another time. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a comment down below. It helps me tremendously. Share the video around as well. If you are new here, consider subscribing. I'll be posting plenty of Battlefield 2042 and Battlefield 5 content leading up to the release of 2042, and I would love for you to join me. Once again, thank you so much for watching. My name is Catalyst, and I will see you all another time.